Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cheat Codes. I'm your host, TaSh, and as you know, I love gaming. And for me, gaming has always been about more than just playing, it's the stories, the creativity, and the incredible journeys that the developers take to bring these worlds to life. So today, we're diving into this with Renee Gittins, the CEO and creative director of Stumbling Cat, and the brilliant mind behind the cozy game Potions, A Curious Tale. Renee, it is so wonderful to have you on Cheat Codes. Please introduce yourself to the audience and let us know what game has had like a massive impact on you personally.
Question, and thank you so much for the warm introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Renee, the developer of Potions: A Curious Tale. Been in the games industry for over a decade now, mostly as an indie dev, but I've done almost everything from engineering to marketing to production to being the general manager of Phoenix Labs Vancouver, creators of Dauntless and Fae Farm. I also ran the IGDA as executive director. And mostly I'm passionate about creating content and resources and events that uplift other people. And I think Potions is definitely one of those games, my work at the
Yes.
IGDA and such as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to share what I'm passionate about.
That. And what about a game? Is there a game
Okay.
that's had like the most impact on you?
For sure. There is one that stands out. I think people don't normally expect this, especially as a cozy game developer. So I actually grew up with first person shooters. That's just what my dad played. So that's what I played. I think my first games in order were Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, Pokemon Yellow. Um, and with that perspective, the game that really completely changed how I saw video games was the original Half-Life. Uh,
Really?
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. The environmental storytelling, the way that levels were built, the like integrated puzzles that made it feel like you were doing something purposeful, not just trying to find the red button in the room. It was just so well crafted and it was so immersive. It was really the first immersive game that I had played, and it just completely blew my mind. I mean, I was like 8 at the time, but it completely changed my view of video games for from that point onwards, and my passion for them has been unbridled ever since.
It's funny that you mentioned first person shooter because I am definitely a cozy gamer, but I love first person shooter games. I'm locked in and it's usually when I tell people that they go, "Really?" Which I don't understand.
Understand. I understand. Yeah, I mean, I almost would consider like Borderlands a cozy game in its own way, with like the
Same.
loot systems and
I got
the
into an
fun
argument
characters.
about that because I said there is an expansive map. And I'm like, how can this not be a cozy game when you can just go and do and I but no, that's I digress. I will die on this hill that Borderlands is a cozy game.
I feel you. I got it. I got it.
But Potions of Curious Tale is a very unique cozy game. So for those who are not familiar, could you please give a quick overview of the game?
Yeah, so Potions: A Curious Tale is what I like to call an adventure crafting game. So combat is not always the answer, and your wits are your greatest weapon. So you play as this young witch named Luna. That's her hat. Um, and she has discovered her ability to brew magical potions. And she can use these potions as spells. And she can use them to battle monsters or overcome obstacles or solve puzzles, but everything in the game is very strategic, because every single potion you use, you had to have crafted, and it costs those materials and resources. You're actually discouraged from running around rampant, slaughtering every fluffy bunny you see. Um, Also, unique interactions cause rare ingredients to drop from creatures. And a lot of times you can figure out how to make that happen with the environment instead of wasting your potions. So it's a very strategic approach of like puzzle solving, trying to figure things out while still having like the old school adventure game, giant over the top boss fights. Again,
Yes.
strategic. Um, in-world puzzles and exploration, treasure chests, collections, all sorts of things. So it scratches a lot of itches for retro gamers, for cozy gamers, and for like those collector sort of gamers who want to solve all the recipes, find all the monsters, collect all the collectible cards.
I find this is a cozy game that I recommend the most to people who say cozy games don't have objectives. And I'm always like, what do you mean? I feel like most cozy games are objective based, but I understand that they mean they don't fully immerse themselves in the journey. So this is always what my go-to for, okay, we'll try this one. And it's
Oh,
usually
thank
a
you.
win-win.
Yeah, Potions is a lot more story and quest focused than a lot of other cozy games. It sort of leans into more of that, again, sort of action adventure sort of aspects there. And it uses fairy tale and folklore from around the world, which really intrigues people, like especially less common folklore. It goes far beyond Western folklore into um, to Journey to the West folklore, to Baba Yaga, to African folklore, and really wide range.
I love that so much. So every game starts with an idea. And so what sparked the initial concept for Potions: A Curious Tale, and how did you go about nurturing that idea from a spark into a complete game?
Yeah, I mean the spark for Potions for me, I was unsure what I wanted to do within the game development industry. This is really like the first big game I ever worked on. And I was trying to figure out if I wanted to be a game designer. And the best way to figure that out is to design a game. So this was really intended to just be a portfolio piece. And my inspiration was a frustration that as a hero, you're encouraged to senselessly slaughter everything for experience or for some loot that you can exchange for a little bit of gold.
Right.
And I found that to be kind of discouraging, right? That like in all these games, in most games, when you're playing a hero, you're just encouraged to just kill as much as possible. Grinding things out is like beneficial, even if they're sort of neutral enemies or even friendly ones.
You're just moving forward and just killing.
Yeah. And so I was like, can I design a mechanic, like a combat system that discourages senseless slaughter? And that's how I came up with the idea of potions, because if combat costs resources, like if active aggressive combat costs resources, people will naturally shy away from it. We all have played Skyrim and hoarded every single potion that has come across our table, right? And so I was hoping to make use of that, to encourage people to think twice before acting aggressively with everything that they run across. And I think it comes across really well. It definitely defies expectations. It causes people to see combat differently and engagement with creatures differently. It took a lot of playtesting, a lot of tweaking, a lot of figuring out how to introduce the players to that concept. But ultimately, I would say it's a great success.
So for someone like me who's curious about where to begin with their own game idea, what will be your first piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to do is to come up with like a couple core pillars or a concept that you're passionate about. Don't don't write a 50-page story. Don't build out a huge world. Don't build out a bajillion systems that are really complex. Think of a few core components that will really be the main parts of your game. For me, it was combat's not always the answer. Your wits are your greatest weapons. Potions are solutions to your problems. And that the overall tone would be uplifting and inspiring. And so those were sort of my four pillars. And anytime I came up with any mechanic, I made sure it added to one of those or was attached to them. Because when you're making your first game, it is so easy to have every idea ever and wanting to make like a MMORPG with flight and this and first
Yes.
person shooters and space exploration, et cetera, et cetera. So really keeping it succinct is important. And then I would say prototype and playtest. You want to create something playable of your ideas as quickly as possible and make sure they're fun. And then you add to it and make sure that's fun. And then you add to it and make sure it's that fun. And that's how you keep having a fun game. If you make a prototype and it's not fun, unless there's some clear path to make it fun, feel free to abandon that one and try something else, because you don't want to spend years on something that's not fun hoping that you'll get fun out of it, because it's unlikely to get there. You want to start with something that's fun and then maintain that fun.
I love that. I have ideas and for me, I'm not a game developer, but I am so into it as just personal development that I enjoy it. But my son, when I told him like my big vision, my son's very much like, what's the smaller idea in that big?
MVP.
Yeah. And I'm like, why aren't you a producer? Because yes, that made sense. And I really had to sit there and think, oh, well, this is the focus and this is what I really want. Sometimes you need someone to ask you, what's the smaller idea in this very large, daunting task? For someone who's never built a game, I'm not going to be able to create Stardew Valley meets Halo. I'm not going to be able to do that.
Yep, exactly.
But I love that. So I think that making a game is kind of like choosing your own adventure. And I used to love those books as a kid. And I love even games that kind of had that choose your own adventure. So part of that adventure is selecting your team and your squad. How did you assemble the talent needed to bring your game to life?
Oh, wonderful question. I think team building is so so important. And my biggest belief when hiring, whether it's for my own indie studio or when I'm working as a hiring manager for a large AAA company, is that you want people with a growth mindset. You want people who are going to be eager to learn and iterate and collaborate, because in game development, we're always having to take critical feedback. We're always having to learn new tools. We're always having to push forward. And you can have somebody with 20 years experience, but if they are stubborn and rude and stuck in their ways, it's going to be much better to hire somebody who is fresher. Now,
Right.
somebody with 20 years experience could be,
Could
growth
be the
mindset,
fresher.
collaborative,
Yes.
etc. But I think it is so much more important to have people who are passionate and curious and interested. And that's how I sort of hired my team. I actually intentionally looked for people who are early in their careers, because I was early in my career and I figured we could all sort of learn and uplift each other together. So yeah, almost every single person who worked on my team, it was either their first game or relatively early in their careers. I think that the audio folks tended to be a little bit more experienced, but everybody else was, yeah, it was very, very fresh. And it worked out well. I certainly had a lot of learnings as a leader. I had a lot of learnings about game development itself, but ultimately, I think we managed to build a amazing product, and I'm super super proud of the folks that I've worked with.
So if you were to give someone some advice for building their team, what considerations would you say are non-negotiable?
Growth mindset, the ability to accept critical feedback, the ability to provide critical feedback, um, just general kindness, like not being an asshole,
Yes.
and then skills, just like hard technical skills, and in that order. The way that you can look for a lot of these things, like one of the reasons why people really look for portfolios of work is because it proves that you probably were able to collaborate with someone successfully if you've created a project together. You have passion if you've worked on other projects. Even if it's something simple like following a tutorial and creating a very basic game, that's fine. If you're an engineer and not interested in game design, just engineer some stuff, program some things. Even if you're like creating a copy of a current game, just don't sell that. That's not good.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because it shows growth mindset, passion, hope. If you're game jamming or working with other people, the ability to collaborate with others. So those are the things I look for. And there's so many wonderful, passionate people out there these days. It can actually be really hard to narrow down the the group of people applying. And so I do lean on recommendations from other people that I've worked with. So a number of my team members came through personal recommendations from other team members. Just that helps confirm that they are nice to work with.
Yes.
And it helps create sort of like a friendly environment and atmosphere too.
I just want to call back for people who've listened to cheat codes for a very long time. Networking, something that I really overemphasize, talk to people. And this is coming from a person who was completely introverted. Talk to people and just talk to people.
Yeah, networking is absolutely one of the best things you can do for your career. Even if you want to be a solo indie dev for your entire career, it is still great to know other people because
Yes.
they can mentor you. They can be peers you ask questions to. They can be publisher connections and funding connections. They can be platform connections. I have leaned so much on the people I know outside of just pure career aspirations, asking them for advice and feedback, marketing help, even. And yeah, it's been really, really invaluable for me.
I feel that's also a callback to what you said about kindness, because sometimes even working on temporary projects, just having an air of kindness puts you in the mind of people who were working on other projects because you were more of a joy to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't want to burn bridges, but even more than that, just being seen as someone who is patient and kind and helpful is such a benefit.
Definitely. So I know that the journey from ideation to release can be a very long one. So what what were some of the challenges that you faced during the development, and how did you kind of get through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most difficult part is maintaining motivation, especially when I'm not a solo dev, but for the majority of the game's development, it was mostly me pushing everything forward. It was mostly me putting in the hours. And so it was really lonely, right? I know I didn't have people to talk to all the time. We maybe had one team sync a week. Um, and waking up every day and being effective was difficult. And it was also difficult when I was working other full-time jobs in the games industry
Right.
and trying to figure out how to work all this potions work around the side. Just like games require iteration, personal leadership requires iteration. You need to figure out
Mm,
what works for you. Because I can tell people what works for me. I'm an early morning person. I don't think most people can wake up at 5 a.m. and work on their indie game before they start
right.
a job at 9, right? Because
Right.
like I know game developers, most of them are night owls. So I my advice, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for other folks. Um, One advice I will say that works for everyone is you have to be kind to yourself,
Mm.
not just kind to other people. Because if you beat yourself up for not reaching all the goals you want, for not being as fast as you want to be, you're just going to perform even worse in the future
Yes.
because you feel bad about yourself. And that's not very motivating.
And that is
It,
definitely a mental tax, because just like creating and creating ideas takes energy, so does beating yourself up.
exactly. So I try to figure out ways to help myself there. One of the things that I do personally is every day I create a very small checklist of basically what I would consider to be a good day's worth of work. If I were to assign this to another person and they got all that done, I'd be like, great job. And if I get done with it early, I say, okay, is there anything else actually critical? No, I've done a good day's work. I'm going to go in the garden, play with the cats, whatever. Um, because if I don't do that, I will have a longer checklist, an infinity
Yes.
checklist, and I
Oh.
will just keep going and be like, I haven't done enough. I haven't done
First
enough.
of
And
all, who sent you and who gave you my life story?
yeah.
Because I'm feeling attacked right now.
Yeah, that's it. Like, and even when I finish my checklist for the day, a lot of times I'm like, did I really do anything? Like, I feel like I didn't do anything. And then I look at my checklist and I'm like, this is things. This is a reasonable amount of work. I've done this. So that's one of the ways that I have like tactically been kind to myself, because otherwise I'll work way too much and then burn out, and then no one's happy.
I needed to hear that. Oh, okay, fine. That's fine. I'll be kind to myself or
It's
whatever.
hard. It's hard. Yeah.
But I didn't consider that as another way of being kind to myself. So, okay, noted. That's fine. But one thing that brought you to my attention was I followed you on TikTok for a while. I saw that you've used your platform to be very open and transparent about the development process. So can you kind of talk about why you chose this approach and what that experience was like for you and your community?
Yeah. So when I started getting into game development, way back when I was just starting potions, I couldn't find a lot of relatable material at the time. There were not a lot of people talking about their game development journey. There were tutorials and there were advanced blogs and there were sort of bragging esque things. But there wasn't something where someone's like, this is where I started with nothing. Because I'm a self-taught programmer, I'm a self-taught game developer. I was really starting at ground, like the very base ground of things. And so I decided to start making dev vlogs. And so I made dev vlogs. I actually did some game streaming long before Twitch had the game development category. So I was on like science and technology, I think was the tagging you had to
Yes.
use. Um, and that had a lot of benefits for me. And it was also really draining, I will admit. Creating dev vlogs, sitting down for at least 30 minutes, going through a bunch of points, recording it. I didn't even edit that much. It was very taxing for me. But I tried to keep that up. Streaming was taxing in its own way. I like just hanging out in my pajamas with no makeup. And that's like not the way I want to present myself to the world usually. So it had like additional lift, and I also got self-conscious with other people watching my screen. But when I did that, I had people give me valuable feedback. But as I transitioned into working full time in the games industry and working on potions, I didn't have as much time to do these sort of dev vlogs and things. But then short form videos became popular, like TikTok, and I started being like, oh, this is a lot lower lift of a way to engage with folks and to provide some inspiring content. Like I really wanted to uplift others, and so I started playing around with that. Really, over the last, I guess, 2 or 3 years, I've started creating a lot more content, and I've tried different approaches. So some of it has been like very focused educational. People like edutainment though, and so more recently I've been doing a lot of sketches and skits that are comedy based but still talk about the struggles of game development, and those have done pretty well. So I think I'll be keeping that up. I think I'll bring in some more personal stories there, because I do, I've had people come up to me and say that hearing about my struggles and about what I've done has been inspiring to them, because they feel alone when they see everyone only showing their best, right? Like we
Right.
live in a world of social media that is where people present so much curated lenses of their lives
Very true.
that it's really easy to be like, oh my goodness, everyone is perfect and always looks gorgeous and is always going on vacations and eating
Right.
perfect food. And here I am in my pajamas looking like a goblin, just chowing down on popcorn and like watching trash. But that's okay, because we all do that. It's just that people don't talk about like the other things. And so I try to talk about when my mental health sucks or when I run into challenges or what I'm self-conscious about, because I think that's healthy for others to be able to see and relate to.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I think I've followed you for well over a year, and I I don't want to be a game developer, but I want to make a game just from my own curiosity. And I was definitely inspired by you and by you being very transparent in your process. I'm like, okay, well, I can teach myself. I can do that. I have a curiosity and I have an openness. I think I could do that. And so I'm hoping that for more people who are listening to this podcast to specifically take a moment and understand that this is not something that's so beyond your reach because you're imagining something that's huge. You're imagining a triple A game. You're imagining the biggest of the big as a way to kind of keep yourself from experiencing something that could be quite enriching for you. So I hope
Absolutely.
so.
And I look forward to seeing whatever you create, no
I
matter
look
how big
forward
or
to
small.
it.
Yeah. One thing I would love to encourage people to do is to participate in game jams, because they're
Mm,
so low commitment, right? They're
that's
usually
true.
48, maybe 72 hours. Uh, you can go in and just be like, I'll just draw things, or I'll just make sounds, or I'll just design or try to program stuff. And even just being one of many members on a game jam
Yes,
team, you'll learn so much. And you'll get those portfolio pieces if you do want to build your career, but you'll get that experience. And I wouldn't recommend anyone do what I did. Don't make one game for 10 years. That's a terrible idea. You should make 10 games, or 100 games in 10 years. Like, just try, because every single game that you make is going to be benefited from the learning of all the ones that came before it. So
true.
make little games. You'll
And
learn a lot.
I've even found out that you can go into a game jam saying, "I don't know what I want to do, but I have a story," and
Exactly.
and now you have a place in a game jam.
Yeah,
You don't have to come with this level of expertise that you believe everyone else has. You could come with just an idea, and or just a willingness to help, and you're in.
for sure. And I also want to make this point very clear. Game developers are some of the friendliest people I've ever met. They're like
Yes,
so welcoming. I know that like there are tales of toxicity and other things that is like happening. Not,
everywhere.
yeah, that
Yeah,
like, but in general, game developers are super passionate nerds who are just excited to like share their ideas and passion with other people and build things together. And
that is
so they
true.
it is great to go to networking events. It is great to go to game jams. You will find really, really friendly people. And a lot of them are introverted and awkward, and they're still passionate and out there and doing things. So like, don't worry if you are scared of introducing yourself. Like, everyone's super friendly. You're not going to be run off.
I remember asking a developer, um, what does jank mean? Because I said I kept hearing people saying jank, and I how I'm imagining it, I don't feel that's what you mean. And then that was a 30-minute conversation, and then like a lifelong friendship. So
Yeah,
it
you can
doesn't.
go to someone and be like, "Man, I love your Stardew Valley death metal shirt. Like, I love both metal and Stardew Valley. That's great." And then,
Yes.
it's a whole conversation.
So if someone else wants to start being transparent in their process of sharing their game, what's something that they should keep in mind as they begin or as they do that?
Yep, I would say find the medium that works for you, because that was the biggest struggle for me. I think the dev vlogs are great. It was not the medium for me. I am not somebody who likes doing hours of editing, so I didn't. It was difficult. Whereas like this more bite-sized content works really well for me. And I like video content more so than written content, because I can be a bit of a perfectionist with written stuff, and I'm a little more throw it out to the nether and algorithms with video stuff. And that's me. So it's going to be different for everyone. Play around with it. Don't hold yourself to one approach. Of course, there's always the dark side of social media and virality. So also have a backup plan of like predetermine how to protect yourself if things go off the rails. Like, I do not have notifications turned on for most social media platforms, and I am never going to turn them
Same.
on again.
Same.
Because I was I, I cannot see a notification and have a neutral emotional response to it
Yeah.
anymore. Because I was on the receiving end of like a lot of harassment at one point. And so if I had thought a little bit more about like my emergency plan, I think that would have been beneficial. And hopefully you never need to think about that ever. But if you do, it's great to be like, okay, turn off all notifications, uninstall these apps, wait 48 hours before I engage with anything, ask a trusted friend to go through and clear out comments for me so I don't even have to read them. Things like that can save a lot of emotional strife if you do end up on the wrong side of the algorithm.
Very true. Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for being on this show. I do have one final question. So if anyone's interested in making their own game and looking for a place to begin, what is one nugget of wisdom that you could share from your own journey?
I like using tutorials to assist me working on a project instead of doing tutorials by themselves. So I think it is overwhelming to try to learn everything there is about game development before you start your game. So I think the best thing to do is to start working on something, trying to build that first prototype. And every time you run into a problem, that's when you go look at a tutorial for it, or that's
Right.
something else, because then that tutorial will be directly relevant and applicable to what you're doing instead of like trying to fill your memory banks with all this information to apply later. I like doing that in the moment because I feel like that's a really good way to continue your progress and growth in a relevant way to what you're passionate about instead of it being like study and then application, having that study and application sort of melded together.
I love that. So what's next for you and for Stumbling Cat?
Ooh, a good question. We are finishing up the console ports for potions right now. So that's super exciting. We're also demoing at Geek Fest, and this will be my
Oh,
first time selling potions merch in person. So if you want to get one of these adorable Helios plushies, you can check it out at Geek Fest. That's in the Seattle area. I'll also be giving a talk on the potions development there. And then we have another game that we're going to start prototyping as soon as we're done with the console ports, which is a party game that is going to be like Mario Party esque with mini games, but set on the neon lit streets of Tokyo after Missing Last Train.
I love that. Okay, I'm excited.
It'll be fun. Think of it like Mario Party and Yakuza mini games. Have a baby. Yeah.
So where could the listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on almost every platform. On 99% of them, I am Riku Cat, RikuKat. And then I'm Renee Gittins on like LinkedIn and YouTube. So that's where you can find me. Feel free to send me messages if you have any game dev questions. I answer them all the time. So reach out on whatever platform suits you. I'm a little slower on some than others, but yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. I want everyone who wants to make video games to be successful at it. So happy
Me
to do what
too.
I can to help. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here because that's part of this platform just to kind of not only help people feel seen but to help them feel inspired in whatever's next for their gaming journey. So
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
thank you. So everyone, I am your host, TaSh. We can connect on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And to stay in the know of Women in Games International, please visit us at getwiggy.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, and you can find us on multiple social media platforms at GetWiggy. Take care, everyone, and we will talk soon.